I went to YouTube to pull up the Piers Morgan conversation about Simone Biles, and I saw something terrible. That's right, Jubilee video. Debating resistance. It's one of the surrounded ones. 20 protesters versus 1 Palestinian, featuring Ahmed Fouad Alkhatib. Come on, man. I'm trying to have a Sunday fun day, a slop fest fun day. And this is what you do to me, Jubilee. You upload this 8 minutes ago, forcing me to watch this, forcing my hand on this goddamn fucking issue. I hate you, Jubilee. I hate everything you stand for, Jubilee. God. Another Jubilee has hit the tower. Sludge. Sludge. Before we get any further, I wanted to pull up the video on, I think it was this one.
So this might be the worst thing that I've seen the H3 podcast do so far, and that's obviously saying a lot. They are scamming people into donating for Palestine, except it's not actually donations for Palestine. It's not donating to like a charity like the UNRWA or the PCRF or something like that. No, it's donations for Palestine that they are soliciting, which go to a pro-Israel propaganda organization. So in that podcast episode from today, Ethan Klein had a talk with Ahmed Fouad Alkhatib, who is like this pro-Israel Palestinian who says, you know, Palestinians are at fault for all of their own misery. Israel does nothing wrong. And he works for the Atlantic Council propaganda organization. He's basically like the one guy who these Israelis prop up as their like token, look, a Palestinian who agrees with us sort of guy. So he always does the rounds. It seems like they can't find any other. But this video isn't about that. I'll probably be covering that on my stream this week. This video is about something that's even worse than that, if you can believe it. There's a part of this stream, timestamped and called Donate to Palestine, in which Ahmed solicits donations for a project of the Atlantic Council, which is explicitly actually pro-Israel. And Ethan Klein is calling it Donate to Palestine. And Ahmed himself also tried to imply this was donations for Palestine, rather than literally just throwing your money at a fucking pro-Israel thing.
Yeah, the reason why we're watching this, by the way, guys, is because we're going to watch the Jubilee video, and I want you all to know who this is if you don't already know who this is.
Tank/propaganda organization. So here's that segment. See, Donate to Palestine. What's he got to say? Let's check it out.
As I work at the Atlantic Council, where I am a resident senior fellow, but also I run Realign for Palestine through the Atlantic Council, and I have a we have like our own standalone website, realignforpalestine.org. There is a donate button. And yeah, so like you're certainly folks can donate there, but also I would encourage folks to consider the World Food Program has a Gaza Appeals page that is dedicated just for here, I'm going to give you the page that is dedicated.
So you can see here that Ahmed Fouad Alkhatib recommends donating to his own personal vanity page on the Atlantic Council website before he even mentions an actual organization that does something for Palestinians, the World Food Program. He sort of phrases them like they're the same thing.
For sending food just for Gaza. And they are incredibly capable.
Oh, that's great. What is that's so the world?
Yes,
world
I just dropped it.
So send us both links so we can put them in the description.
Okay. I sent this.
Check out Ahmed's org Realign for Palestine here. It's linked in the description. So let's go to the Realign for Palestine website. This is a website that's literally just pro-Israel talking points, anti-Palestinian talking points, set up to like masquerade as a pro-Palestinian website. And front and center, you go here, donate to the movement, you click it, Donate today to stand with us in building a future rooted in hope and dignity. Each contribution strengthens the movement for peace and self-determination. You know, I noticed this is not tax deductible. It's not donating to a charity. It's literally just sending your money to Ahmed Fouad Alkhatib and the Atlantic Council. And this is marked as Donate for Palestine. And it's in the description of the video. After 2 years, the stalwart pro-Palestinian Ethan Klein finally attempts to raise money for Palestine, and he sends it straight to a pro-Israel think tank. And it has like this thing of like quotes from Palestinians who support it, and they're all from fucking Ahmed Fouad Alkhatib. It's literally his personal vanity website in which he solicits donations for himself. This is disgusting. This is absolutely gross. This is foul. What more is there to say about this? This guy solicits donations for himself from people who think they are donating to Gaza. What more?
And there's like, he did another video on this as well, sort of talking about the Atlantic Council a little bit more in depth. I think it was here. And he breaks
We have a
down.
Palestinian who agrees with us. And you can tell that what
Here we
is
go.
the Atlantic Council? Well, it is a Pentagon and US government funded think tank that is also heavily funded by the American arms industry. Don't take my
That's always a good thing when something is funded by the American arms industry.
word for that, I'll show you. The Atlantic Council is the #1 think tank recipient of funding from Pentagon contractors, receiving 10 million in the period from 2019 to 2023. The Atlantic Council came in 4th on the list of think tanks that received the most funding from the US government, with 8 million from 2019 to 2023. Notable donors to the Atlantic Council include the Charles Koch Foundation, Amazon, and Verizon. Other notable donors include the Lockheed Martin Corporation, Raytheon Technologies.
That's how you know the money is going straight to a good cause, when Lockheed Martin is personally funding your organization.
So the Atlantic Council is just a US government propaganda cutout. It is essentially an arm of the US government that is made to look like an independent.
I'll fact check this later, but I trust you, Filth, in general. Ethan also recently posted on his Instagram about Gaza Humanitarian Foundation not realizing that they are an Israel and US-backed scheme. I don't know about the word scheme here. I have to do more research on whether or not he posted this, what that looked like, whatever. Even people on a subreddit realized how bad it looked and tried to post it, even do any research, but it was deleted almost immediately. Nice. Good.
Organization that is in its majority funded by the US government and the Pentagon and weapons.
Chatter's correct. I mean, like I said, Hassan saw it last night. Okay, got it. Like I said, I trust Filth.
Contractors.
There's a reason
along
they're
with
VIP'd in here.
American government allies like the United Arab Emirates. So this is an organization, to be clear, that is just an arm of the American government in everything but name, in everything but official, like on paper record. That is who Ahmed Fouad Alkhatib is employed by. And that is who Ethan Klein chooses to feature on his podcast. Ethan Klein's like, you know what? They keep saying I'm not pro-Palestine. I never do anything pro-Palestine. I never do fundraisers for Palestine. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to invite a token Palestinian who is an employee of a fucking US government-funded think tank, of a Pentagon-funded think tank, of a weapons contractor-funded think tank. You know, all those people currently doing genocide in Gaza, all of them pro-Israel. I'm going to bring him on to show that I'm actually pro-Palestinian. I'm going to bring this guy on who is just a straight-up Zionist, and I'm going to tokenize him, as I have denounced others for supposedly doing in the past with Israelis and Jews. Now, it's actually even worse than that, because in this H3 podcast episode, Ethan actually solicits donations to Ahmed Fouad Alkhatib's Atlantic Council, and he calls it Donate to Palestine. So he tries to fool people into believing that you are donating to Palestine by donating to this think tank, this literal US government-funded think tank.
It's just like new levels of like evil, dude. He goes into, Badamdana goes into more detail about the way that they talk about where the money is going. It's a pretty good video. I highly recommend watching all of it in detail, but I want to be able to get, or have enough time to get to the Jubilee video. So before we get to that, lastly, before we get to that, I did want to share this. Oh, This is the post. Ethan posted GHF propaganda statement, literal terror or created by Israel, which backs ISIS gangs and arms them, plus U.S. mercenaries so that they can weaponize and loot food and ethnically cleanse the people to Egypt. 5 minutes later, Ethan, Hamas are under hospital. Klein makes a "you can't find me being pro-genocide" post. Incredible. Timestamp from Hassan's stream yesterday. Sure, let's take a little peek.
Then, I call him the president of peace. Ethan Klein is criticizing Hassan Piker by sharing a statement from the fake Israeli aid agency Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. Come get your freedom fighters. There ain't no fucking way he posted a Gaza Humanitarian Foundation post thinking that it was just like an actual Palestinian group. Is he this fucking stupid? The answer is yes. Okay? The answer is yes. He might be that fucking stupid. I think he saw the name Gaza, okay, and he thought this was a Palestinian group criticizing Hamas, and he ate the bait. By the way, this is, if you were wondering why the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, which is an American fake aid agency that is in direct violation of human rights, in direct violation of humanitarian law, an Israeli and American aid agency, as a matter of fact, a fake agency that actually weaponizes aid and has, for the past week, shot at and killed numerous fucking Palestinians that are desperately trying to get food in this aid trap that they have designed. If you're wondering why it's called Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, it is for the dumbest person you know, Ethan Klein in this circumstance. The absolute stupidest person you've ever encountered in your entire life. Worst stream in a while. What? Why?
Okay. Yeah. Ethan Kleinson, can someone Google 10 divided by 10 for me? Not being weird, are you in LA too? Is it crazy there? Yeah, it's a little bit crazy, but I probably going to go to some of the protests here. I will keep you guys posted. But National Guard get called, I heard. Yes. And before I get any further, this comment as well. Thank you for posting this, Artemis. The United States diplomatic cables leak revealed that the Atlantic Council worked closely with Chevron Corporation and ExxonMobil representatives to undermine the Brazilian legislative proposal to grant Petrobras, chief operator of the pre-salt oil deposits in the Brazilian coast. That's good. No, that's good. That's good. And then there was the interaction with Anthony Sargon and Alkhatib. He says, "Like I care what a Lebanese Arab thinks. Go deal with your slimy countrymen and terrorists up and down Lebanon, dude. Stay out of Palestine and Gaza affairs. You're really not as intelligent or helpful as you might think." Holy moly. Anthony Sargon replied, "According to H3's favorite new token Arab, Ahmed Fouad Alkhatib, Lebanese people are slimy with terrorists up and down Lebanon. Sounds like language that justifies genocide and violent bombing campaigns." Shame on you, you Khara. Anthony, don't stop it. He called him poop. Khara is just poop. Okay, all right. Yeah, poop has no, like, it doesn't have weight. In Arabic, it has so much weight. Khara, it's like, oh. It causes the psychic damage to you when you hear. I feel like that's a lot of the Arabic words. They have just like way more punch than some English words. But alrighty. Let's watch a little bit of this Jubilee video. No promise I can watch fucking most of it or even all of it. God, Jesus Christ. But I wanted you guys to get an idea. This was someone, Ahmed was someone who went on Ethan's broadcast and basically was like, yeah, I was trying to speak on behalf of Gazans. And then the organizers were like, you can't say anything bad about Hamas ever. You're not allowed to say anything bad about Hamas, which is like cap. Cap of the year, but all right. So I wanted you guys to, and then also, yeah, he like pushes this fundraiser, which is just like literally just a pro-Israel propaganda organization. The money doesn't go to fucking Palestinians. But Yeah, that's all of the lore. I just feel like I can't play a Jubilee video like this without initially showing you all who this person is in the first place. It's like showing the Jordan Peterson interview to someone who doesn't know who Jordan Peterson is.
Common ground with people who support a genocide. That's
You
unacceptable.
make peace
That
with
is
your
never-
enemies, not with your friends.
No, we do not make peace with people who are murdering children. Answer me that. Who put your parents in Gaza?
Between 1948
You're
and
not gonna
67 and 1967.
You've dodged every one of my questions.
It's not us who are rejecting the people.
Wait, they're kind of eating. Joel, thank you for the gift sub. Dr. Maggot, Goat Geek, thank you for the tier 1.
I don't like the fact that whoever's trying to promote that this is the moderate view and this is the extremist view. We are not extremists.
My name is Ahmed Fouad Alkhatib. I'm a Palestinian American who grew up in Gaza, where I lost immediate and extended family members in the war. Since October 7th, I've been on a mission to delegitimize Hamas and promote a pragmatic pathway forward.
Oh, thank goodness. Ahmed is telling us all about how evil Hamas is. What would we do without him? It's not like CNN and MSNBC and Fox News and every single news organization in the West is telling us that Hamas is unbelievably evil and they're a terrorist organization. Thank goodness we have this guy bravely speaking up about the fact that Hamas is a terrorist organization.
Away from violence and toward peace and coexistence. And I'm surrounded by 20 pro-Palestine protesters. My first claim is that October 7th was an abhorrent disaster that unleashed the worst catastrophe in the Palestinian people's history.
Don't worry about the Nakba. That didn't happen.
Hi, my name is Ahmed.
So, worst catastrophe. I think that you're using specific words for specific reasons. The Nakba, catastrophe, right? I want to offer my condolences. I believe that 33 members of your family were exterminated by the Zionist entity. So my question is, how is this worse than what initiated everything, which was the Nakba in 1948?
My grandparents were pushed out in 1948, where 700,000 Palestinians were unfortunately forced to leave their homes, and in some cases had no choice but to leave their homes. Since October 7th, over 2.1 million Palestinian people have had to leave their homes due to the catastrophe that Hamas's actions unleashed by attacking Israeli communities on October 7th. Quantitatively and qualitatively, Hamas's actions have triggered one of the worst catastrophes in the Palestinian people's history, whereby 50,000 Palestinians would still be alive had Hamas simply kept its soldiers at home.
Sorry, him saying 50,000 Palestinians would still be alive caused me psychic damage never before seen by man, because it's like, I forgot that this guy who's supposed to be pro-Palestinian also has to shovel all of the Israel propaganda directly down our throats. So he can't even suggest that maybe the deaths are greater than 50,000. Any reasonable person already knows that it's in six figures. And that's not talking about the bodies that they haven't been able to find. That's not talking about all of the deaths that have been caused by like a lack of medical supplies, not from shelling, not from direct shelling, but like malnutrition, from people who have like medical conditions that they can no longer seek treatment for their medical condition, right? Like if you have diabetes and you need insulin, where the fuck are you going to get insulin from when there's no medical aid or like no medical supplies being allowed into your country? Like what are you supposed to do? Or like, yeah, any issues, health issues that could be caused by not having clean drinking water. Like first of all, the 40,000 number is already so unbelievably low. It's been frozen since 2024, like mid 2024. At least six figures. At least 100,000 people have died. And that's just from shelling. That's not including all of the deaths that were caused that were preventable from a lack of supplies being entered or being allowed into Gaza. And like there was a really good, I know NPR is like shit lib and everything, but do you know how bad it is when even NPR is talking about how Israel's behavior in Gaza is unacceptable, and their claim, yes, I listen to NPR sometimes, please sue me, okay? When I'm in the car. Right? And even NPR, they had someone on, I'm like forgetting the name of the person. I don't know if I heard the beginning or the end, but the person they had on was talking about how Israel keeps trying to talk about how, well, they can't let food in because Hamas keeps smuggling it, stealing it, smuggling it, and selling it on the black market. And the the interviewee said, hey, guess what? You can just flood Gaza with food. And then they won't be able to sell anything on the black market anymore. If you flood Gaza with food and everybody has enough food to survive, you don't have to worry about Hamas selling food on the black market. Holy shit. Do you know how bad it is when that's what's being said on NPR?
On October 7th,
Right. So,
including family members of my own.
so by that logic, if Zionists wouldn't have colonized Palestine, then none of this would have began to begin with, right?
As a Palestinian who grew up in the Gaza Strip, what I can tell you is that
Who put you there?
the Gaza
Who
Strip
put you there?
had immense potential to be the pride and joy of the Palestinian people, to prove that we are absolutely capable of having a functional state of our own that can rebuild our society, rebuild our heritage, reclaim our presence on the land.
The entirety of the land, or just because I believe your parents were in a refugee camp, right? They were forced into that.
There are nuances and complexities in history.
Who put them there?
Nuances and complexities.
But that's a very
in
objective thing.
In
Who
history
put them there?
that unfortunately
Zionists, right?
you unfortunately are not willing to listen to some of the nuances and the complexities. Do you know, for example,
Well,
that
just answer
in
that.
1948, the Arab armies that were coming in to supposedly save the Palestinian people asked
From whom?
Palestinians
From whom?
asked Palestinians to leave.
Occupiers, yeah.
Asked Palestinians to leave, disarmed Palestinians, and said, oh, this is a matter of 2 to 3 days.
So we agree that they should have been armed.
That's not my point. My point
Well, you
is
said they disarmed them as if it's a negative thing, right?
the history of the Nakba itself is so singularly focused on what happened from the point of view of Zionism and
the colonizers, right?
Whereas I actually want to understand what happened with the Arab failures that have
To
put
stop
us.
the failures to stop Zionism, right?
Why wasn't
From
a
colonizing
Palestinian
Palestine, right?
state? Why wasn't a Palestinian state established between 1948 and
Because the
1967?
British were in control of the region, and we know for a fact that the Palestinian revolt was in opposition to the British, right? So when people talk about
Fact check. Britain controlled modern day Israel, Palestine, and Jordan from 1918 until 1948. Well, they had influence for longer than 1948.
we've been opposing colonization for 75 years since the Nakba, add another 30 for British colonization of the region. Is that incorrect?
Between 1948 and
Is
1967.
it incorrect that the British
Who was in
colonized the
charge
region?
between 1948
Is
and
that incorrect?
1967?
You haven't answered a single one of my questions. I asked who put your parents in Gaza, and you were unwilling to answer that. Can you at least answer me that? Who put your parents in Gaza?
Between 1948
You're
and
not gonna
67 and 19.
Oh, he eaten. Oh my. Bro, he's got his head spinning. He's got him spinning.
1967.
You've dodged every one of my questions.
It's not dodging so much.
So just it's a very simple question. Who put your parents in a refugee camp?
On my mom's side, the Arab invading armies asked the invading armies to liberate the Palestinian people.
Why were they
asked
invading?
to supposedly stop the Zionist invasion.
From doing what?
From taking over the Palestinian people's lands in
Sheepishly, because they were doing something wrong. Mm. Supposedly.
the areas that later on became Israel.
Not the
okay, and
voice
you're okay with that?
crack.
I'm not okay with that.
Okay, so we
I
should
would
liberate
like-
that land.
80 years later, Israel is
80.
a recognized state that exists, that is recognized by the entirety of the international community. And this illusion that armed resistance is going to get rid of 7 million Jewish Israelis, 7 million.
We're talking getting rid of the Zionist occupation.
Both Ethan and this guy blame the Nakba on the Arabs. I don't think in the moment or after the fact, Ethan Klein really processed how bad that clip of him saying the fucking Arabs was. Because it's not that he said the, or that he said fucking, or that he said Arabs, but that he said that in reference to, I'm sorry, why do you think Zionists exist? Why do you think that the state of Israel exists? And his retort was, well, it's not the Jewish people's fault that Arab people are so anti-Semitic that they wanted to kill every single Jew that they saw. These fucking Arabs forced us to massacre these Palestinians. It's like, whoa, holy shit, dude. What the fuck are you on?
The Zionist entity itself, right? The colonial forces.
So do you believe that there should be a space for the Jewish people?
There
on
always
the-
have been. What we're opposition to is, or opposing, I should say, is the Zionist entity itself. Why do Europeans have the right to colonize and impose a government on Palestinians? Why?
Well, I would say that we should ask that to the
No, I'm
king
asking
of
you.
Jordan
I'm
at the
asking
time.
you. He's not here, unfortunately.
At the time, we should ask the Arab armies that came to liberate the Palestinian people.
Why
and
didn't they
ended
defeat
up-
the Zionists?
And ended up facilitating part of the Nakba by asking folks, my mom,
So you're blaming the Nakba on the Arab countries.
I'm blaming the failures of the Arabs and of the Palestinian leadership at the time in acting in the best interest of the Palestinian people, and then looking at 1948 to 1967. Why wasn't a Palestinian state established? Why wasn't it until 1964 that at the Arab League summit that the decision was made to create the Palestinian Liberation Organization and to push for Palestinian statehood? Why was Jordan allowed to annex the West Bank and Egypt annex the Gaza Strip?
To be
where
very
my
clear,
family-
I'm against that, but that's a regional conflict, right? That's a regional. What I'm opposed to is Europeans thinking they could colonize Palestine.
Do you
That's
know
a
that half
primary
of Jewish
contradiction, right?
Israelis? Do you
Well,
know
I'm
that
not
half
talking
of
about.
Jewish
No, I'm talking
Israelis
about the
are-
originators of the Zionist project. Can we agree that they were Europeans?
Not entirely, no.
The majority?
Not entirely.
majority secular Jews.
There were certainly some elements of the
majority was.
Zionist movement that certainly emerged out of Europe. But I'm saying right now, I am thinking about the future. I am thinking about Gaza. What happened in Gaza on October 7th was not because of Zionism.
What happened in Gaza on October
happened
7th?
What happened with the attack that Hamas launched as a terrorist organization. You have taken an entirely different approach to thinking about October 7th. You
Right.
have eaten up the Hamas propaganda that says October 7th happened because of Zionism.
And you're eating up
Because
the Zionist propaganda, right? Because
I'm
I don't ever hear you being.
Well, you're clocking him. Yes, keep going. Call him out on eating up Zionist propaganda. Let's
And
go.
I've seen many of your interviews. I don't see you ever bringing up the IOF, if you want to call them the IDF, the Hazenga, where they came from, right? They started as a terrorist militia, did they not? Were they not killing
That's
British
irrelevant
soldiers? How is that irrelevant? That's where
to
they
the
came from, and they
fact-
continue to impose that upon the Palestinian population. I ask you, why is it that in the West Bank, there's nobody stopping all the colonization that is still occurring?
Palestinian? Are you Palestinian?
I'm Mexican.
Have you lived in the Gaza Strip?
No, when you were run out, right? When you aligned yourself with, what was that organization you're involved with?
What an insane, like, this is another thing that a lot of like pro-Israel, pro-genocide freaks keep trying to parrot, which is, well, I'm sorry. I noticed that you aren't in Gaza. It's like, you think I need to be somewhere to be able to empathize with the people that are living there? Did you just blow in from Stupid Town? No, actually, I can see the IDF members bombing schools and hospitals and cheering about it and then saying, nothing will be left in Gaza. Yeah. I can take a look at the arrest warrants out for Bibi Netanyahu and Yoav Gallant. I can look at the genocidal rhetoric that they've used to talk about Gazans. Dude, the most recent instance of like obscene language from Israeli officials was it was like Secretary of State or something. I don't remember his name, but he said, well, we have to let some aid into Gaza so people won't be so mad at us. We have to let enough food be entered into Gaza. Not to help the people. No. Mm-mm. No, because they're getting too much criticism from the world for letting these people starve.
Because I know you work for the Atlantic Council right now, right?
Do you know anything about my history?
Yes, I do.
So tell me,
Your
what is my
parents
history?
were forced into Gaza, were they not? They grew up in a refugee camp, were they not?
Do you know anything about Hamas and how it treats Palestinians in the Gaza Strip? Do you know anything?
Not worse than Israel.
And like, this is the only thing that they have, which is, well, Hamas has treated Palestinians in Gaza poorly before. And it's like, first of all, Hamas hasn't been around for as long as the state of Israel has been around. So already we're fucked. Like, you're already fried on this talking point. But more than that, Hamas can be the most evil organization on the planet, the most evil terrorist organization on the planet, and that doesn't change the fact that Israel, the party with way more power, food, money, weapons, all of the supplies that are allowed to enter Gaza, that party is the party that can end the conflict. And guess what? Carpet bombing entire swaths of Gaza doesn't end Hamas.
Israelis and Zionists treat them.
Do you know that in the past 2 days,
So we agree.
Hamas executed dozens of Palestinians who were hungry, who were desperate, as Hamas was looting.
Dozens of Palestinians. Meanwhile, the Zionist entity exterminated 33 of your family members.
Pause. You've been voted out by the majority. Please return to your seat.
Hi, Dania. My name is Ahmed.
Dania, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
So I want to shift the conversation a little bit.
Please.
You said that October 7th was one of the most detrimental things
Yeah, kudos to that guy. He did a good job.
to Palestinians, correct?
Mhm.
I would beg to differ because I think the fact that, also, let's not pretend like October 7th was an isolated incident. It didn't come out of nowhere. It came after years and years and years of occupation, oppression, and siege. Okay? So on October 7th, when the resistance took place, because it wasn't an isolated incident, it also happened.
They 100% changed the title from critic to Palestinian. I have no idea. I saw it when it was 8 minutes out, and this is what it was. So maybe you're right, maybe you're not. I don't know.
Happened to take place during a time where social media was rampant. So for the first time in a really long time, Palestine was in every conversation. Most everybody that you know could talk about Palestine in one way or another. They knew about what was going on. And for the first time, we are hearing people recognize how detrimental the IDF has been and the occupation has been in history. And I think that the fact that it took place during a time where social media was at its height, we're seeing people on the ground, we're seeing people take videos of the rubble of their homes, we're seeing people have to makeshift water filters so that they can have drinkable water. We are seeing children get shot for collecting rainwater. We are seeing children dying and starving and emaciated infants. And for the first time, it's not
1000% said critic originally. I saw it minutes after it was uploaded. Ooh.
just on the news. It's on your phone. We're watching a genocide take place on our phones, and most everybody is talking about it. So how can you say that October 7th was so detrimental to the Palestinians when it is the first time that it has been brought to heightened media attention?
Well, I share your horror in what's happening in Gaza. I mean, it is an unimaginable level of death and destruction and pain and suffering and hunger and in some cases, I mean, people like being burnt in their tents and all the really horrible level atrocities that I have called out and I have said that the Israeli government and military have committed war crimes. I've actually like overtly said that.
I mean, it doesn't take much to recognize that.
But my
Clock his ass. Yes.
point is, I don't want my people and my family and my community and my beautiful Gaza that has meant so much to the Palestinian people there and to what remains of my family to merely become a social media phenomenon where it is on display for people to look at and say, wow, look at this is so
That's
horrible.
the only way. That's the only way that they can get people to recognize just how bad it really is, because there is no mainstream media covering.
Wait, Ted Mason?
Look at this is so
That's
horrible.
the only way. That's the only way.
Social media phenomenon where it is on display for people to look at and say, wow, look at this is so
That's
horrible.
the only way. That's the only way that they can get people to recognize just how bad it really is, because there is no mainstream media covering what has been going on for 80 years. It's all skewed media.
So may I just clarify, because that, if so, that sounds really awful what I just heard you say. You're saying that you want to see images of dead Palestinians. You want to
No
see...
one wants to see those images, but if that's what it takes to get people to recognize what's actually going on instead of another Middle Eastern war, then that's what it takes. It's tragic that
So
that's what it took.
Do you not recognize that Hamas, in official communiques, has and publicly and overtly has made it clear that part of their strategy relies on causing maximum death and destruction in Gaza, so that
What? I'm sorry.
Took.
do you not recognize that Hamas, in official communiques, has and publicly and overtly has made it clear that part of their strategy relies on causing maximum death and destruction in Gaza. So
Problem with this type of analysis is that we've tried this strategy before with lots of terrorist organizations, and it doesn't actually end conflicts because you are misrepresenting the goals of the terrorist organizations, making it impossible to ever actually resolve that conflict. This was talked about with Sam Cedar and Ethan Klein when they were talking about it. Hamas overestimated the value of the hostages. They wouldn't have gone out of their way to take those hostages if they had known that Israel would just not try and get them back. They underestimated Israel's cruelty and their inability to give a fuck about a single Israeli person. If their goal was blanket destruction, they would have just killed everyone that they ran into in Israel. Hamas would have just, that's what they would have done. Like, I don't know what other universe makes sense. The whole purpose of taking the hostages was to prevent damage to Gaza and in an attempt to end the conflict via ceasefire and via hostage exchange. Because they didn't anticipate Israel saying, oh, you have our hostages? Yeah, bomb the complex. It's fine. The hostages are in there. Who cares? Bomb the complex. They literally didn't they didn't think that they didn't think Israel would do that.
So that the ensuing
In
imagery,
response to
may
Netanyahu blatantly saying that his goal is ethnic cleansing.
may I just finish this point, please? That Hamas wants to generate maximum death and destruction on the ground in Gaza in hopes that the ensuing imagery can actually rile up the international community, rile up folks in the West.
Sorry, is that fact checking correct? I don't even read half the Jubilee fact checks because they're so fucking useless. Because it's not even relevant. Like May 2025, Hamas announced that it had executed 6 Palestinians and shot 13 others in the legs for allegedly looting food stores and community kitchens in Gaza. The conversation about the destruction of Gaza, the destruction of the infrastructure of Gaza, that is a conversation about Israel's response to October 7th. It's not a conversation about whether or not Hamas has killed innocent Palestinian people before. It's a fact check that isn't relevant to this conversation.
Netanyahu blatantly saying that his goal is ethnic cleansing.
May I just finish this point, please? That Hamas wants to generate maximum death and destruction on the ground in Gaza in hopes that the ensuing imagery can actually rile up the international community, rile up folks in the Western diaspora on college campuses, so that then this could delegitimize Israel, so that this could stop the war. I'm talking about facts on the ground as somebody who has so much attachment to the reality of Gaza on a daily basis. My brother is there right now running one of the biggest medical NGOs. He has 70 direct reports that are doing work that's saving lives. I hear from folks from the protesters.
There wouldn't be
Hamas.
lives to save if there was no occupation.
How about
your brother would not have to run an NGO if the occupation never existed and they weren't constantly bombing and killing children?
My brother was there.
Sorry, you've been voted out by the majority. Please return to your
Thank
seat.
you very much, Dana.
If Israel wanted to end Hamas, they would offer the Gazans an alternative to Hamas that could not be ignored. If people don't, this is just basic human nature. People do not turn to violence when there are other alternatives. They don't.
Hi, Evan. Nice to meet you.
Good to meet you as well. So I think one of the issues with your framing in that October 7th is leading to what we're seeing, the genocide today in Gaza, is the explanation that what is happening is inevitable. Genocides are not inevitable. This is the first armed conflict since the Rwandan genocide, in which the majority of deaths overall are women and children. The October of Gaza had some of the worst bombing campaign that we've seen since the Korean War or World War II. This type of level of destruction is not inevitable. This shows the explicit aims of the Israeli war cabinet, which they have explicitly endorsed as being a part of, for example, Trump's proposed plan of ethnically cleansing the Gaza Strip. The goal, for example, right now, with the complete blockage of food and aid, is to make Gaza uninhabitable. We cannot say that this is an inevitable consequence of armed resistance, which armed resistance is an inevitable consequence of occupation. What makes Hamas's argument for armed resistance is the fact that in the West Bank, where the PA operates as basically an administrative state for the Israeli government and actually goes insofar as to protect settlers, what that actually does is it functions as to make the case for Hamas to have instances of armed resistance. For the last you brought up why we haven't had a Palestinian state. For the last 2 decades, Israel hasn't even been interested in that. And that's even to say that they were, for example, interested within the Oslo period, which I don't think was actually the case.
So the fact on the ground remains that 50,000 Palestinians would still be alive had Hamas made a different choice, but had they simply kept their fighters at home on October 7th. I recognize the imbalance of power dynamics between Palestinians and Israelis, but with clearly the Israelis, if I may finish this point,
Sure.
Within said imbalance, there exists plenty of room for Palestinian agency and accountability and responsibility, such that October 7th was a choice. It was not an inevitability.
But you think the 50,000 Palestinians that are you're saying that that's an inevitability, though. And I'm saying that no genocide
I'm not
is
saying it's an
inevitable. But that's
inevitability.
exactly the framing of the point that you just brought up, is you said that October 7th is what's causing what's happening right now in Gaza. What's causing what's happening right now in Gaza is the Israeli state.
Hamas served our people, the defenseless Palestinian people, on a silver platter to the most far-right government in Israel's history. What did you expect would happen?
Actually, Israel served that. They did everything they could to undermine Fatah and support groups like Hamas. So
well, I'm glad you brought that.
Actually, good fact check? Wait, what? before the October 7th attack, Israel's government under Netanyahu allowed Hamas to receive foreign cash aiming to weaken the Palestinian Authority and hinder the formation of a Palestinian state. Holy shit.
That point up, because what happens in Gaza doesn't stay in Gaza. The fact that Hamas was propped up by the Netanyahu government and by the Netanyahu regime should tell you everything you need to understand to delegitimize this group, to understand that they were used to undermine the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank, which I don't subscribe to the Palestinian Authorities, the entirety of their approaches. But the Palestinian Authority was the closest thing we had to a political framework that in the 90s, when I lived in Gaza and I experienced the tail end of the Oslo peace process, a time of immense hope and optimism we went from having to me peace and coexistence with Israel and pragmatism meant that we shed the Egyptian travel document and we got a Palestinian passport. It meant that we had an airport in the Gaza Strip. We flew in, my family and I, in 1999 and in 2000 on the Palestinian Airlines. That was undermined by failures on the Palestinian leadership side and by Hamas's rise to undermine the Palestinian nonviolent approach.
I'll be the first to say, I think Palestinians have every right to criticize their own leadership. I think that you can it's always good to...
Sorry, you've been voted out. Please return
Thank
to
you
your
very
seat.
much. Thank you. Appreciate it.
First bad guess, just letting him talk. Good on the other people for voting him out, dude. He just let him go off and off and off, dude. Fucking terrible, dude. Jesus. I'd have flagged him too. Yeah, you're not wrong, dude. You're not wrong. Oh, dude, do I even have the strength for this? What's the second claim?
My next claim is that armed resistance will get the Palestinians nowhere. Hamas's terrorism is not a viable path to statehood.
And claim 3.
Ultimately led to divestment.
My next claim is that angry protests in the West are not helpful to the Palestinian people in Gaza.
No, you're right. We should all just give money to your fucking Israel org. That's true. That would do way more. That would do so much more for the Palestinian people.
Next to Israel.
Okay. Oh my God, dude. I don't have the strength for this. I just don't have it. I don't have the power to deal with this, dude. I do want to see this guy get schooled. I want to see this conversation.
Against this brutality.
Well, it's unfortunate you assumed that I've never been a part of any efforts.
Tell me what it is.
I'm going to, because I have, in fact, believe it or not, I was actually in the San Francisco Bay Area where I lived for many years once I left Gaza. I was part of Students for Justice in Palestine. I was part of the local Jewish Voice for Peace effort. I was part of BDS. I went to the Sabil conference every year that was talking about BDS efforts. I gave my money to these organizations. I was a very vehement...
You repented? It was a mistake?
Are you going to let me speak, or are you going to be patronizing?
No, I'm so sorry. I apologize. That was not my point. My point is that you memorize certain words and certain points, and you're trying to propaganda here.
But
my question to you is, what do you think right now? What do you suggest to my people in Bethlehem to do to resist the brutality of Israeli government?
Sure. I'm going to get there, but I would implore you to please afford me the respect.
Because we don't want to have sermons and rhetoric. Just tell me straightforward, what do you suggest they should do?
What I would suggest they should do is to persevere on the land that they have called home for decades and generations, and to not let armed resistance
and be
come
shooting
in.
ducks, sitting ducks being shot by the Israeli snipers.
Wait.
Let Hamas, because unfortunately, if you engage in armed resistance, that is simply going to give the settlers and the army, the Israeli army, the excuse.
Oh no,
to
I
come
agree
in.
with you. I have no problem with that. My question is, when you see a rabid dog in front of you, you're not going to say, hey, little puppy.
Also, yeah, like what a fucking crazy universe that like this guy's response was, well, just wait until it's your turn to be ethnically cleansed. Just sit in your house and wait until your house gets taken and the next person and the next person. Make sure you don't allow any protesters ever to fight for you.
Give me a kiss.
That's not
right. You're going to defend yourself. And the truth is, and the history showed us, that when you put so much oppression and persecution on top of a group of people, eventually they're going to explode. And that's what's happening. We're not saying that, no, I agree with you, but...
So how about we separate, as a first step, we separate the just and urgent aspirations of the Palestinian people from the corrupted armed resistance narrative of Hamas, number one. Number two, we actually come up with a cohesive national strategy for a nonviolent resistance. We don't need the images of dead. My family are not to be consumed.
It was not a propaganda.
My family are not.
What the fuck?
If someone is using propaganda, is the Israelis saying the hostages' names and their pictures, and look, and they're trying to gain the sympathy from Americans.
I share images on my socials of the horrendous settler behavior that is abhorrent, that is criminal.
Thank you.
That is criminal. You asked about the allies and the folks. At the end of the day, what have the encampments achieved?
Oh my goodness. The fact that we have 20 people here from different factions of lives, that's an achievement.
Talk to me about results.
The fact that there's so much money are poured into trying to refute this movement and this wave of young, brave people and students to defend the Palestinians, it's freaking them out. They're panicking, the Knesset, they're panicking the Israeli government because of what's happening because of these young people. So I take my hat off to each one of them and I tell them, thank you for standing up for my rights and my people's rights.
The divisive rhetoric that has emerged from...
Oh yeah, now we're back to... I like how he literally got his question answered. He asked, oh yeah, well, what do all these divisive protests do? What do they even do? And the guy responds and he's straight spitting saying, are you kidding me? Any news coverage of this is good for Palestinians. Covering this genocide at all, getting people aware of what their government is doing, and making people aware that that they are complicit in their government spending of tax dollars to fund this fucking war machine, genocide machine. This is good. Like objectively, it is good to have more coverage of this, to be able to hold these people accountable, to maybe be able to get aid to these people. And of course, he's like, well, I think it's just really divisive rhetoric and it makes me uncomfortable. The chatter says, I didn't know what a Palestinian was until this conflict started. That's an indictment of the media schools and the government.
A lot of the pro-Palestine activism has pushed away vital allies on the Israeli and the Jewish side of
I'd rather gain the billions of people around the world.
Joel, thank you for the 10 gifts. It's driving me crazy.
And give up those few thousands or few hundreds of Israelis, Salam Achshav and Peace Now and all that. These are only a small fringe minority. Even when you talk, I deal with the interfaith community all the time. And when I sit with the Jewish community here in America, and they tell me, you know what? Jewish Voices for Peace, they're just a fringe in the community, in the Jewish community. They're just a small minority, and it's smaller even inside Israel. With all due respect to the people that you met, and I thank them for that. But if it's a trade, I would trade the billions of people around the world, the thousands of people on campuses in the US, for the few hundreds inside Israel who are speaking up for the Palestinians.
This might be a head shocker to you. I talk to the mainstream Zionist community and plant seeds of humanization, mutual empathy and humanization. There's no Palestinian freedom without winning over mainstream support within Israel. Like our community did in the 1990s.
I would wish for you, you know what I would wish for you? To be, hopefully, the Gandhi of the Palestinians. You have the haircut.
I have an afro, by the way. I choose this haircut, but I have an afro.
But I promise you, if your path would be
that cap, bro,
able to free the Palestinian people, I'll be the first one to support it. But we've seen it over and over in history. When people are brutally being killed and massacred and sieged, like what's happening to Palestinians, we're not planning for firearm resistance. We're not doing that. It's just a natural outcome of what the Israelis been doing. My request to you is, as much as you are harsh on the Palestinians, try to be a little bit harsh on the Israelis. Try to stand up and speak up for your own people and try to say that what the Israelis are doing, they could have stopped the genocide after October 7th. And they should have said, you know what? We are not going to do what Hamas did, and we're going to try to solve the problem in a better way. But to go out of their way and kill hundreds of thousands of Palestinians, not 50,000. There's so many under their belts still they cannot find their bodies. Just they should be the civilized people. They should say, you know, we're not going to go to that level, and we're not going to do that again. So I hope,
oh my God, he's cooking so hard.
Your message and your peaceful path will work, because I am for it as well. But I cannot stop people who are being shot and killed every day for the past 16 years in Gaza.
Oh
to
my
tell them, you know what?
God.
Just sit down and wait for your turn to be shot and killed. I cannot tell them that.
I appreciate where you're coming from, and I appreciate the diversity within our community of the perspectives and how to approach this. But what is so frustrating since October 7th is that there has been a sense of an enforced conformity within our society, within our people, that a lot of the folks from the outside, a lot of the academics, a lot of the non-Palestinian voices have added to it, whereby I have had tens of thousands of messages from Israelis across the spectrum, folks, including even reservists who have served in Gaza, who say, you know what? You single-handedly helped me realize that there are actually innocent people in the Gaza Strip.
Incredible. I'm glad he found time to glaze himself when talking about a genocide. Good for him.
That might sound...
That is sad.
That is, but you know what?
It takes someone like you for them to believe there are innocent people in Gaza. That is very sad.
I agree. But we have to start somewhere.
We are starting. Those movements on campuses, those demonstrations, they are starting. We might disagree.
Campuses are making it 50 times worse. They are further dehumanizing our...
I like how he didn't have a response to this, by the way. Like, he literally didn't have a response to this guy saying, I can't in good faith tell people to just like roll over and die, which is the exact take that I had, by the way, about the election. I'm sorry, I can't tell people. Well, you need to vote blue no matter who, when talking about people who are abstaining because of a genocide. I can't do that. I can't. I'm sorry.